in the United Corporations of America, fresh off of the Broadway theater that happened in Chicago. It is Monday, August 26th, 2024. A lot going on. I got to tell you, I'm fucking tired. I'm burnt out. I wasn't even on the ground in Chicago. And that might have been less work than the amount of work we did last week. If you followed, we did a Herculean 3-day mega show called The People's Mic. So those are all up on the channel. We did it Tuesday through Thursday. Really incredible interviews, I think. We had Nina Turner, Marianne Williamson, Cornel West, Jill Stein, Greg Palast, Professor Richard Wolff, Shama Sawant, Winona LaDuke, Jody Evans, a whole range of guests. We haven't posted every interview yet. And, of course, we had John on the ground doing God's work in Chicago at the DNC, where they tried to erase, it seems, at least 5,000 to 10,000 protesters that were in Chicago. So we'll go through all that. At the same time, I don't know if you know, but released a book a few weeks ago on the Flint water cover-up. And boy, is it hard to promote a book on the Flint water cover-up, no less, during a presidential election year. So maybe I'll blow off some steam about that a little bit later. But I appreciate everybody who has gotten the book so far. I don't know the exact number, but we've definitely sold a few thousand copies so far, which I guess isn't terrible for the first few weeks. And I'm gonna be trying to, keep this going, keep promoting, keep pushing this post Labor Day as the month of September comes, and hopefully get some more traction on that. So plenty to discuss there. But appreciate everybody watching last week. Our on-the-ground coverage in Chicago, all the new people who signed up as paying members. We will do a little party dance a little bit later, but we also passed 200,000 subscribers on Status Coup. Holy cow. If YouTube wasn't screwing us, we would have passed this about 5 years ago. But we passed 200,000 subscribers. I feel like we passed 200,000 subscribers like a week or so ago, and we're already past 205,000. So damn good that we're finally picking up thanks to you. So welcome to any of our new subscribers. Hopefully we could turn you into paying members at some point. A little bit later, I will give you my vision for the next On the Ground report, which I'd like to do in September. When I say me, Jordan, out there on the ground. Tied to the election, but a little different than all the usual corporate suspects do. But we're only going to be able to go on that reporting trip if we keep growing our paid members. So we'll get to all that later, but I want to glad to say joining me now is Peter Hager. He is a longtime progressive activist. He worked on unofficially, officially, kind of both Tim Canova's campaign in 2016 when he tried to unseat Debbie Wasserman Schultz. That was before he kind of flew to the Trump side. He more recently worked on Jen Perlman's campaign, who I thought was a great campaign. Unfortunately, it didn't win this time against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And also is the co-host of Generational Change, which you definitely got. What's that?
With a J.
With a J. And you definitely got to subscribe. No excuses. If you're subscribed here, you got to subscribe to Generational Change. We'll put the link in the description under this. They do great work, non-sexy work like us on all the stories the corporate media buries. Peter, are you as disgusted, not just with the Democrats, but the media as I am?
Well, I would say that everything that we've experienced ever since we linked up in 2016 has only further solidified what we suspected was going on at the time, when it seemed like a significant portion of the country just wasn't really aware of just the depths of how bad this has gotten. But I think in lieu of what has happened over the past few days, particularly what transpired at the convention, what's also transpired in Gaza, I think it's really just woken people up to the realities of what's in front of us. And the disillusionment with the electoral process, I think, is also set in for a lot of people. So, yeah, I'm upset, but I'm also
Peter, I don't want to hear you're upset, okay? I want the fiery motherfucking Peter Hager that I talked to on the phone. Don't give me the eloquent.
I have to be a little bit more reserved because I have to consider my future and what I'm going to do in terms of how I have to be involved. And I also think that it's necessary that, you know, when we get really upset, there's a thing about when it comes to decorum. Liberals like to talk about decorum from the standpoint of, oh, well, we all have to be nice. We all have to get along. You know, we all have to pretend everything's okay. No, decorum is about how you present the argument that you have to put forward. I can look somebody directly in the eye and call them a genocidal maniac without having to scream and shout it at them. But I can still get my point across and it's going to sink in. Now, whether that's for Debbie Wasserman Schultz or anybody else, the thing about where the Democratic Party stands today, particularly as it relates to, let's just say, the genocide that's going on, it's actually become exceptionally more overt in a way that is very much like the Republican Party. They do not even attempt to hide it anymore. And the idea that they're wheeling out Debbie onto national TV, although let's be honest, she just wants to be on TV in general, but they're not doing anything to stop her. Whether it's going on Bloomberg or it's going on CNN, she is not only going out there as a mouthpiece for the Democratic Party, but doing it in a way that basically says we are pro-genocide and we're proud to be pro-genocide. No qualms about it whatsoever. So if you aren't upset now, well, you really should be, because we're only going to see this exacerbate to an even higher level. But it also shows the depths of just how powerful the Israel lobby truly is. And when they hook the screws into people and tell them, you're going to go out there and you're going to say exactly what we tell you, or we'll either just push support over to Trump or we will primary you, whatever it's going to be. And for the people that I know are not in favor of this, but are too afraid to actually say anything publicly, I'm sorry, but at this point, you're just being a coward. How many innocent lives how many innocent children have to be mass murdered before you say, I guess I have to put myself in harm's way to get the point across that this is not acceptable and we got to do something about it?
Well, there's a lot of directions we could go in. I definitely want to get into some things that I saw that I found really interesting. I did a video earlier on it where somebody on corporate media told the truth. A high-paid anchor, Chris Cuomo, told the truth that I've been doing this now, kind of a reporter on the scene in the trenches for 10 years. And I have never seen what Chris Cuomo said on News Nation said anywhere else. And I think it's actually a pretty big moment. Maybe we'll hear more truth on corporate media. I doubt it. So I do want to get to that. But I don't want to do what the Democrats did and bury the biggest thing going on. So I want to start with essentially the DNC's erasure of the genocide, which, to be clear, and smash that like button, share this live stream. Almost 200 watching, but we got to get a lot more. By the way, folks, we had a big show last week, but we did not hit the targets we wanted. I think we got about, 50 to 60 new paid members last week. We wanted a couple hundred. So we're still going to be pushing for new paying members, and you're going to want to sign up as a paying member because I have an idea for a reporting trip that I want to take next month that we're going to need money for, but I think you're going to want to support. So sign up, and I'll tell you more about that later. StatusCoup.com/join. But before we get to all that, Colin, let's just play a little compilation, whatever you put together, of the on-the-ground reporting that John did. Because while, the Broadway theater and I believe the Steven Spielberg production, I actually believe, no, I'm not being dramatic. I think Steven Spielberg, from what I heard, had part in the production of the DNC. Also, Jeffrey Katzenberg of formerly DreamWorks Animation. So while the, theater, well-produced theater was going on, this was what was going on outside that they pretty much erased.
And I have these in individual clips, so you can just play one at a time.
Whatever. Go ahead.
Press, give them a chance to move back. Let the press move back. They're pressing them. Move back. The press is holding you up.
You are now being announced to vacate the area. Media, you are now being announced to vacate the area. If you fail to comply, you will be in violation of the law, and we will place you into custody also.
They are supporting the corporate interest. The United States is a federal corporation. They are not champions.
So that was just one example of the police providing a completely illegal order, by the way, for media to vacate the area or you will be arrested. Whatever you got next, Colin, I want to show more of the brutality police perpetrated on peaceful protesters. You did not even hear a mention, I mean, barely a mention inside of the protests going on outside, but let's show you more.
Move back. Move back. Move back. Back up. Move back. Back up. Move back. Move back. Move back. Move back. Move back. On 2 minutes, you guys got to back up. We're going to give you guys a warning. You guys got to back up. Move back. Bring it on the police. Get behind the police. Stay right there.
Come up and swing your fingers in front of an officer.
I need you to step back.
Do you understand? You can say what you want, but you can't throw your hands in an officer's face.
Thank you.
Do you understand? You've been warned. Do you understand?
Yeah, I understand you. You've been warned. I understand you. I seen you arrest a lot of good people tonight, and I'm worked up.
And we saw you burn flags.
I didn't burn shit.
So here's the deal. Here's the deal. You can leave. You can leave. Let me go. Let me go. Now, you can leave. But do not ever.
So right after that, they cuffed him for no reason. I wanna, by the way, this is not like anybody else's This is our footage. If you're new to us, we were on the ground the whole time. John Farina for us has covered at this point over 80. Let me repeat, over 80 ceasefire protests, student ceasefire protests, protests in the morning, protests at night, protests. He's been out there at 3 a.m. He's been out there in the cold, the heat. He's been out there when it sure does seem repetitive, but we're out there anyway because the people are out there. So that's why we're asking for your support, because frankly, without John doing this for us, and by the way, because we've been charged up the wazoo by our broadcasting live view, which is how we go live. I mean, we're streaming sometimes 5-6 hours straight. That costs a lot of money because we're going over our data plan, but the people are out there that long, so we want to be out there showing it. So please support us again, statuscoup.com/join. But Peter, before I show you the cable news clips to this, I want to be very careful how I state this, because I don't want people to think I'm comparing the disrespect the Democratic Party showed Bernie Sanders supporters, delegates, Nina Turner at the 2016 convention. For those of you who were, involved then, you know what I'm talking about. They would not let Nina Turner introduce Bernie Sanders. That led to Nina Turner and delegates storming out of the DNC.
But I could tell you why Nina Turner was not allowed on stage, because I know why she wasn't. Hold that thought. Yeah. So I want to be clear. I'm not comparing the disrespect to Bernie and Bernie's delegates to a genocide. It's obviously not the same thing. But what I will say is, the Democrats and how they behaved at that convention, basically like, shut the fuck up.
Get
It's
in
a
line.
party.
Get in
It's a
line.
party.
The vibes are good. Stronger together. Hillary stronger together. Now it's for the people. Kamala. They were very cocky and condescending and arrogant. And they just thought, well, we're going to win. And we don't even need these Bernie people. Well, this is not just Bernie people. This is Arab Americans. This is young people. It's a lot of older people. I'd say it's a decent amount of independents. And the vibes feel really good. Everybody in that convention was feeling great. There were people crying when Kamala spoke. And, you know, the confetti and the balloons. Everybody's feeling great. And the polls look good now, even though I'm not so sure whether I would trust them. But it's the same concept. Do you think it's just these 5,000 to 10,000 people that protested that are not going to vote for Kamala Harris or vote third party? By the way, breaking news, Jill Stein won her challenge. So she is now back on the ballot in Wisconsin. And over the weekend, Cornel West won his challenge. So now he is now back on the ballot in Michigan. So what I ask you, Peter, I think that they are making the same. I don't even think they care if they're making the same mistake. I think they're making the same mistake they made in 2016, because not only did you erase what's happening in Gaza from the main stage, you created this alternate reality where you didn't even basically acknowledge the protests. You wouldn't even let an elected Palestinian, and there were several offered on stage. You think these people are going to forget that? I don't.
They're not only not going to forget it, but this, I think, is going to be a lot different than 2016. I think that there is a solidification of a mass exodus outside of the Democratic Party, a mass exodus outside of the two-party system, because I think one of the only things, if not the only thing that's really holding the GOP together is Trump. I think that there are a lot of people who just simply want out from this completely broken economic and political system. You can't look at what happened, on the street, for example. And I got to tell you, as somebody who, I have a lot of progressive values, but I'm also very libertarian in a lot of ways. I cannot listen to an officer say you can't burn a flag. Like, oh, are you fucking insane? Like, the idea that this, and you got Trump doing his little thing at the podium now saying, if you totally burn an American flag, you're going to prison for a year. These people are insane. They literally are telling you, we're going to erode your constitutional rights, and they're doing it in real time. They're just doing it in real time. They don't care, because no one's making a big enough deal about it. And there is sort of this...
Well, it's not just that. They're literally making it up as they go along. They're saying to the media, and by the way, that wasn't like the CNN reporters in the trenches out there. It was John for us, Ford Fisher, mostly independent people. The CNN people were inside the Broadway theater. But they're just making it up. Media, either leave or you're part of the protest. That's not how freedom of the press works. Oh, we're going to take your credentials if you don't stop shooting, meaning we want to be able to do whatever we want without cameras on it, meaning we want to crack skulls without it being broadcast. So they're just making it up as they go. But to me, it's kind of this arrogance and also this disconnect from reality, because in 2016, Trump was new and they just couldn't comprehend that this guy could win. They didn't realize that there was such a significant underpolling of Trump support. So they basically, erased the Bernie movement, disregarded youth voters. They shifted right in choosing Tim Kaine as vice president. In a way, they corrected that. I think Walz was the best choice of not a lot of great options. But this Gaza movement, I mean, just look at Michigan. Biden won Michigan by 150,000 voters. There's over 150,000 Arab Americans registered in Michigan. If you lose 40 to 50% of those Arab Americans, along with less turnout among black men, which right now there is less turnout among black men for Democrats in Michigan, less turnout among young people. Right now there is less turnout among young people. She's going to lose Michigan. If you lose Michigan, she basically has to be perfect. She's got to win Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and a whole lot of other states that it's not a slam dunk. So to me, when I just see this complete erasure, and I know it's hard, folks, it's hard not to get duped, because you watch this program, 3 days of programming, and you got John Legend, and although she didn't play, you got Beyonce's song blaring. You got Oprah out there, and Oprah is a charismatic figure, and it sounds great when she talks. and you got Stevie Wonder's on stage, and it all feels good, and it all looks good, and you got great vibes and themes, and it almost seems like they care about you.
So disingenuous. It's so disingenuous. I watched it for like 30 minutes. One of the only reasons is because I saw Maxwell Frost go on.
Oof, that was tough. That was tough.
It's not real. This is just a show. Like, there's no policy. There's no actual emphasis on what really needs to be done to make any real changes. And I think that that's a very good segue into the significance of what Chris Cuomo actually did on the convention floor, which initially I didn't fully understand until I really listened to it. I'm like, oh, okay. So now, you see, as far as I could tell, I think Cuomo simply has an axe to grind. Like, this is a guy who.
Wait, don't segue into him yet. I'm not done with this part.
Okay.
I'll get to him. But I wanted to show you, and I know we might not get the fully angry Peter, but maybe we can get, mild to moderate. Colin, let's play this clip. It's from CNN. It's the first one on the doc. This is how they described. And by the way, this is just two, cable news, cocktail crowd people basically saying, well, what do these people in the streets really want? Like, just be happy with what you got. Let's play it.
Let's start with how Harris kind of navigated this at the DNC, which is to say they didn't broke any of it. And in fact, when Susan Rice was talking with my colleague Jake Tapper about the uncommitted faction, they were delegates who were uncommitted to initially Biden, but also Harris. And she basically said, okay, it's a little bit rich that people who aren't not committing to Harris want a piece of the stage at her convention. But it seemed very clear to me they wanted to send a strong message that they were not sort of engaging in this really, while at the same time making sure that she took a tone in her own speech that was different from where Biden was on this. How did you look at all of that?
Yeah, I think that the vice president has shown a strong vision for how to resolve this current war, a call for a ceasefire exchange for hostages, a strong argument for supporting Israeli security, as well as for Palestinian self-determination, ultimately two-state solution. It's hard to understand what more people could want out of a presidential candidate. That was the most forward-leaning speech I've ever seen at a convention, and I think the crowd responded. The crowd responded as well to her calls for Israeli security. And the folks pushing uncommitted also had a lot of behind-the-scenes engagement with the campaign. They had official events at the DNC. They were in touch directly. They did move the needle on much of the rhetoric. So that's a win. Take the win. I'm not sure why they're not saying we support you, and now we're ready to do more. It seems like a little bit of an own goal, quite frankly.
So let's be clear. Number one, what more could you want?
And ask the suit who went to an Ivy college and clearly grew up probably on the North Shore, and wants you to understand that you got to accept having very little in life, and it's better than having nothing at all. You know what I mean?
And the best part of that was a real improvement, or whatever he said, in the rhetoric. Like, these people, their whole prism in life, their whole prism in terms of success is change in tone, a change in the rhetoric. Well, I don't know. I'm a white Jew. I can't pretend to feel what the Arab Americans feel. A change in tone is not going to stop the bombs or the missiles or the deaths.
Thoughts and prayers, Jordan. Thoughts and prayers might actually convince them to just drop a few less bombs, or, well, I mean, you gotta try anything.
So I'm gonna let you respond, but I want to play, because again, we were one of the only media outlets that were even at this press conference. Because to be clear, most media did not want to be at this abandoned Harris press conference because they don't want to get in trouble. They don't want to get in trouble, meaning they don't want to get a little too close to an abandoned Harris group, because then if Harris loses, that media could be tarred and feathered. Well, you helped create this. Well, we're not going to play that game.
They can't even acknowledge that it's going on. As far as they're concerned, they want to pass this off as just a fly-by-night thing. There isn't really any juice to this. So if you even give it coverage, you're giving credibility to it. And from the rich liberal masses, they can simply not have that pierce their perfect bubble.
So we were one of the few media outlets that aired this press conference. We're not going to play the whole thing, but this is the kind of man that we're about to play that should have been on stage at the DNC. He was a delegate, elected delegate from Washington State, Arab American. Now you know why they didn't want Arab Americans on stage at the DNC. Let's take a look at some of that, Colin.
And I came here from Washington State. I'm a lifetime Democrat who's abandoning Harris due to her unconditional support of Israeli Zionist regime who are committing genocide. The whole world is screaming, but makes no difference in Biden administration and his VP Kamala, who's the nominee for the Democratic Party as a presidential candidate. Just remember, we can watch the misery and suffering and dying of little babies underneath the rubble in our smartphone. They've been hiding from us for many years. But the day has been changed. The social media changed this world. The Bharat media used to hide all the information from us. But thanks to social media, we can watch it in our handheld cell phone. There's not only 40,000 women and children died. There are another 145,000 buried under the rubble. They didn't even get a chance for the prayer. The world has to wake up, and America has to wake up. Listen, we cannot be part of genocide, of killing women and children and babies. Have some mercy, have some soul.
So, Peter, I guess the Democratic Party, the DNC, is all about.
How do you turn away from this? I don't understand.
I guess they're all about
this.
I guess they're all about inclusion and diversity if it fits their narrative or fundraising emails.
You wanted me to get upset? This is how I get upset, because it is obvious that this is a genocide. This is not even, there is no discussion here. This is not a gray area. This fits the definition in a substantial way. And this is not, as Jen has pointed out many times, you're not even taking into account the disease and famine that has come from this and will kill hundreds of thousands more as a result. This is something that will be this is going to be, in terms of a black mark on our nation's history, equivalent to the Trail of Tears. It's going to be at that level. We are mass murderers of the highest order. I will not vote for Kamala Harris, and I do not care what that does for me personally, politically in the future, if anyone hears me say that. But I would advise anybody else to exercise their vote and vote for something that isn't going to contribute to what is going on. It is much easier to just fall in line and hope for the best rather than actually fight and try to do something that will help change the circumstance. Jen Perlman ran for Congress in one of the biggest Zionist areas in the United States. And you better believe that there was an undercurrent that was going on about the fact that she was a Jew, doing it down here in lieu of the fact that there are a lot of people that, frankly, are fully on board with this. They really are. And it's sick.
Well, you know what's really staggering? And we got 430 people watching, so smash that like button. Remember, Peter is co-host of Generational Change with a J, so make sure you subscribe. The link is in the description. They do great work on their channel that YouTube suppresses, just like this channel. But what's amazing, the uncommitted movement, who I went to Dearborn recently, we were on the ground there interviewing Arab Americans. They were not proposing like that guy, even though I totally agree with that guy. They were proposing a Palestinian American elected officials, like a state representative from Georgia who's Palestinian American, others who were elected who wanted to go on stage and actually endorse Kamala Harris. They were willing to have their speech vetted by the DNC. They were willing not to go that far, but to only describe, the kids missing limbs, all the death, to say the hostages should be released. These were not like bomb throwers saying down with Kamala Harris, vote for Trump. And they wouldn't do that. And Peter, I would argue, this is just speculation, I would argue that a big reason the DNC did not allow a Palestinian American on stage is because of what we're about to show you. Ooh. Now the segue. So Christopher Cuomo, son of former New York Governor Mayor Cuomo, used to be on CNN, infamously during COVID, joked around with his governor brother about COVID, the big cotton ball they put up each other's noses. I got fired from CNN for whatever. He was advising his brother, Chris Cuomo, when he was governor. It's not the worst of things he did on CNN. But anyway, he's been demoted to the minor leagues recently. He's now on News Nation, which is still corporate media, but much lesser audience. But call a spade. Now that he's on News Nation, apparently he has more leeway to tell the truth. And I was stunned. This was the equivalent. I don't know about you, Peter, but I watched the WWF back in the day. Wrestling. Okay. I loved wrestling.
Kayfabe. He broke kayfabe is what he did.
I don't know what that means, but I watched wrestling as a kid, and this was the equivalent of like Hulk Hogan. Well, he's not really Hulk Hogan, but let's just say like Bret Hart, who was my hero when I was younger, coming in and saying, "Hey, folks, it's fake."
That's breaking kayfabe. That's the definition.
Okay.
Basically saying, "Hey, wrestling's fake. It's not real."
Well, I didn't know wrestling was fake and not real until I was about probably 13. So I want you to watch this. And then we'll discuss after. We did a video with this early, so if you saw it already, so be it. But for people that haven't seen it, let's play it.
Here at the DNC is that they're going to go after corporate gouging, and they're going to go after corporations, whether it's in taxes, largesse, loopholes. The RNC, we heard the same thing. They're going after the elites, the two sets of rules. Let me reveal a reality to you that has to be spoken to here, okay? These are the soldiers. These are the men and the women that go back to their constituencies and their communities, and they fight. They take time from their jobs. They take time from their families. Republicans and Democrats alike, that's what they do. They need to charge these people up. They need to be able to get them on board. But there's another reality that is literally looking down on them. Greg, look at the ring of sweets, okay? This is not unique to Democrats. There is a game of money. When people talk about uniparty, we are strangled by the money reality in our politics. Those suites start at 500 grand. You think there's like a teacher group up in there? You think it's like the Cub Scouts of Columbia County, South Carolina, that's up in those boxes? Some of them are lobbies and good things. The media boxes, you think they're free? Why do you think I'm on the floor? News Nation is not a broke company. Nexstar is a massive organization. We are corporate media. We don't have one of those boxes because that's the game. You pay to play. Those boxes are filled with the same people that they say they're going to regulate. They are literally looking down on the faithful and being told, yeah, we're going to break down on them. We're going to make them pay their share. They paid $500, $700, $1 million, $1.5 million to have those seats. They get hotel suites that are probably gifted to the party. And the same thing is true with the Republican side. And they're going to take them down. They're going to change how it is. They are looking down from on high at the people who make the difference in their communities. And that is the reality of politics. And I had my producer walk around and show you those suites. Now, they're not all the same. They're not all the same. But the reality is, in 2000, they spent $300 million on presidential campaigns. 24 years later, you know what they're expected to spend? $10 billion. Do you know how much money Harris has raised in the last couple of weeks? Hundreds of millions. And that's success. A lot of it's small donor. A lot of it isn't. The most dangerous money in politics is now legal money because of Citizens United. You've got to know this. The idea that they can fight against it is almost laughable. It's almost laughable. So look and listen when you are told these things.
Oh, I really wanted to see that last image, Colin, where it showed you exactly what these numbskulls were paying in order to be there. But remember, the people that really control our country are the ones that are looking, high above the masses and looking down upon them.
So there's a lot to get to in that clip. And I got to say, I am happy to say it. Credit to Chris Cuomo. I'll also say, why didn't you say any of this when you had a much bigger audience on CNN? But I think we know the answer. And by the way, clearly somebody like Chris Cuomo did not just have a light bulb moment in the year 2024. Clearly he knows this is how it is. And he's always known this is how it is. Yet he went on national television as I think his salary was probably $8 to $10 million at CNN a year.
Easy.
And basically just engaged in the fake sport, engaged in the fake theater, made people believe that there was really a debate about policy here or a major difference in the parties. I mean, there's a difference on some issues, but on the core, structural things that matter and affect you, all of us, your wallet, your futures, your health care, your climate, there is no major difference. And I would surmise, Peter, I'd love your thoughts, just speculation, don't have any information. I'm going to venture to guess that somewhere in those boxes up there was Jeffrey Katzenberg, who was the co-chair of Biden's campaign. I believe is still the co-chair of Harris's campaign, is basically the money man for the party, for getting Biden and now Harris a lot of money. He used to be the DreamWorks animation CEO. His net worth, last time I looked, was $900 million. It might be $1 billion now. Just happened to give TYT, my old company, $20 million of an investment. Go ask them about that. He's happens to be an ardent Zionist. I'm going to speculate. I don't know for sure. Haim Saban, net worth $3 billion. One of the biggest donors to the Democratic Party, going all the way back to Bubba, to Bill. Number one donor. When I say ardent Zionist, I'm talking like even worse than my father, and that's saying something. This guy in 2018, the last round, when they were bombing Gaza, not to this degree, nowhere near to this degree. And some Democrats said something mildly like, we need to stop the killing. He sent a letter admonishing those Democrats who he happened to have already bought off, basically saying you're pro-Hamas. And when Biden, a couple months ago, for 5 minutes, paused weapon shipments, which were never really paused, but he said we were going to pause them. Haim Saban sent a letter to Anita Dunn and Biden's other top aides, basically saying, slap on the wrist, you need to stop this. And what do you know? They turned that around real quick. So I'm going to venture to guess that it wasn't really Jamie Harrison, the DNC chair, making the final decision about putting a Palestinian American on stage. I'm going to guess that there happened to be some, what did Chris Cuomo say? People who pay to play, who had some decision making on who spoke on stage and who did not. I would argue with Chris Cuomo's phrasing that these are the, quote, soldiers that go back to their communities. No, these politicians are not soldiers. Okay, they have the best health care you could get in America. They get the most time off of anyone I know that is a salaried worker. They barely work. They spend 75% of their time off the premises of Congress in a separate location dialing for dollars. These are not soldiers. They are corrupt, purchased stooges. But I got to tell you what Chris Cuomo said. It can't just be him that realizes this. You think Anderson Cooper doesn't know? You think Rachel Maddow doesn't know? Which would make you think, Peter, are these all just today's Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels and Hulk Hogan? And I'm using wrestling references, but do they all know it's just fake and they're just feeding us a bunch of bullshit?
I could come on here and tell you about why this is such fake material. Oh, yeah. When you look into the camera and you ask yourself, is this real or is this fake? I can't really tell you, but the Macho Man wants you to understand that you got to enjoy the show first. If you enjoy the show, you might forget how bad things really are.
And that's the whole thing about the entertainment business. Vince McMahon has always said that I'm not in the wrestling business, I'm in the entertainment business. Well, soon enough, people need to realize that politics is the entertainment business. This is not here to serve you in any capacity. It's over, and it's been over for a while. Chris Cuomo is making that statement because while he's probably still making a decent living, he doesn't have a multi-million-dollar mansion in the Hamptons anymore, probably. That's what changes when you get to that level of wealth. You could probably still make $500,000 to $1 million a year being a newscaster on News Nation. But at CNN, you can make 8 figures a year being a news anchor. Rachel Maddow and Sean Hannity probably being the 2 highest paid that we currently have. And they are the biggest shitbag liars that you have. People complain about Trump being a liar. There's a reason he may, and in my opinion, probably will find a way to win again. Because everyone wants to point the finger at him, that he's the lying scum. But the truth is, while he is a liar and scum, he is nothing compared to people that are way above his pay grade. And I'm talking about the likes of Jeffrey Katzenberg, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk. These are the people who really run the show. The other people are just there. And there are people, again, I could always reference Debbie Wasserman Schultz as a prime example of that are just ready, willing, and able to take the bribes because they want the life. The life is important. And that covers a lot of ground. One of the things that happened to both AOC and Maxwell Frost when they first got to Congress was that they were able to take a wonderful trip to Asia, to China, to South Korea, to Japan, all expenses paid. The best food, the best hotels, probably the best gifts too. Let me tell you something. When you get into that world, it's easy to hook you in when you have no ability whatsoever to succeed in the private sector, to achieve that success on your own. Most of the people, especially in the Democratic side, because it's much worse there, because very often they get plucked out of obscurity and they have no concept whatsoever of how to make serious money. So when they get there, their attitude is, I'm going to make changes on the margins, but I'm not giving this up. That's the thing. And a number of them are not going to work against you, but they're sure as hell not going to stick their necks out. That's not happening. Because the money that's out there is money that you can't even begin to comprehend. I work in one of the, if not the top industry. I work in commercial real estate. I know all about Blackstone and how they are taking over this fucking country home by home every day. You are never going to be able to afford anything, ever, because you still play this game. And you're still convinced that somehow you can vote your way out of it. Now, I'm not saying don't vote, because voting does matter, but it's not going to solve the problem. If we do not unify through labor, and I am saying this, and I will say this to people, particularly who are progressives and on the left, get out of your fucking feelings already, because there are going to be people in the labor movement that support people like Donald Trump. And if you can't accept that, well, good luck, because this is the path we're heading towards. And every day, it just gets worse. Most people think that you got to figure these problems out at your Democratic caucuses and club meetings. No. Let me know when you're going to your Lions Club, to your Rotary Club, go to your union hall. Let me tell you something. The union bosses, for the most part, may stink, but I guarantee you that overwhelmingly, if not almost every rank and file labor union member feels the same way that we do. They just don't play in this stupid sandbox anymore. They're just trying to get whatever they can to survive. And in many cases, they're just trying to make sure they have a pension so they don't die, literally infirm and in the streets, because that's where so many of us are heading. Chris Cuomo spoke the truth. He spoke the truth because he really doesn't give a fuck anymore. His brother, had he stayed on his trajectory, probably would be in line to be the president right now. But shit happens, and Cuomo is no longer in any position of power. And I would say that I know people called Chris Cuomo Fredo, but he's more like Sonny. He's got the Sonny Corleone attitude, like he wants to fight. He's a fighter. He's Italian from New York. It's in the blood. I think he's very pissed off because I think he's looking around saying to himself, I know how all these people think, and yet I'm the only one who seems to want to say anything at all about this. And I think Cuomo's got a lot of problems, but you know what? At least he said it. There's a hell of a lot of others out there that can say it too.
Well, what I think is the most alarming, and by the way, that's not the only clip we're going to show you. There's another clip that actually might be even more revealing than that, from a longtime Democratic Party super volunteer. I found this on TikTok, of all places. And this one, it's a little different than Cuomo, but it might be even more revealing.
Oh, this is even bigger. And the reason it's bigger is because there was probably a shitload of people. And I know a number of people. And just so you guys know, on Generational Change tonight at 9 o'clock, Nadia Ahmad, who was the DNC delegate who got her head smashed in for holding up the Free Palestine sign, she's going to be on our podcast. There are a lot of people that were there who did not want to be a part of the pomp and circumstance, but they all have kept their mouths shut until now. Somebody finally decided, you know what? I can't be quiet about this. This is all bullshit, and you got to know why.
That's a good segue, Peter. By the way, we have almost 500 people watching, so make sure you subscribe to Generational Change. The link is right under the links in the description. They'll be on at 9 o'clock, like Peter said. Real quick, for the almost 500 people watching, you want to know about bullshit? You want to know about corruption? You want to know about deadly corruption? My book's been out for 3 weeks. We're still going to be doing events in September. I'm just getting started, folks. I'm up against an election, so it's been very hard to get the word out. But the book is available in most stores, and you could also order it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever you get your books online. And the audio version is coming out in September. So if you only like listening to books, you could purchase it to listen. It's called We the Poisoned, Exposing the Flint Water Cover-Up. Aaron Brockovich.
And I am reading the book as we speak, guys. It is very gut-wrenching, but absolutely necessary to read because there are 1,000 Flints all over this country. This ain't the only one. This just happens to be one that has finally been given the exposure it desperately deserves.
And by the way, as of this morning, I had the New York Times and Newsweek magazine telling me they were interested in an op-ed from me tied to my book. I was pitching them, hey, all this hysteria about democracy is on the line in the 2024 election. That's all bullshit. Democracy has already been stolen. I give you Flint, Michigan. If you don't know the story about Flint, literally the governor of Michigan declared a financial emergency and plopped in unelected emergency managers, i.e. czars. Basically what everyone's afraid something like Trump could do. This happened in Michigan. That's why the Flint water crisis happened. I gave them a draft. Maybe it was a little too radical for them. Maybe there was a little too much truth. They both passed. Shocking. But anyway, we got to get the buzz back. I want to get more buzz about the book. I obviously want to get more sold, not for me, but to get the truth out. So if you haven't purchased it yet, if you have purchased it, spread the word. But if you haven't, please get the book. I'm doing a book event in DC in September, and I'm trying to book some other events we could do too. All right. I want to play this other clip. The link, by the way, is in the description of this video too. I want to play this other clip because this was a lifelong Democrat who was at the DNC, and she, like I think a lot of others, has become disenchanted with the Democratic Party, but didn't want to say anything, didn't want to rock the boat. But everything Peter and I have talked about so far that happened, she just couldn't take it anymore. It's a little long, but I think I'm going to play the whole thing because it's important.
And I just want to add one thing. You know why she's doing this. I think the biggest reason she's doing this is because she may have had to just do a whisper or two at the convention, try to just talk some sense into people, just to be like, isn't this such and such? And she probably got a reaction from somebody to say, this is a party. Don't mess with our vibe. And somebody's, okay, you know what? If it's like that, then I guess I have no fucking choice.
Absolutely. So let's play this, and we'll respond afterward.
Okay, I'm going to get real in this, and it's probably going to piss some people off. But I'm okay with that, because if I'm not being honest, then what else am I doing? I just got back from the DNC where I signed up to volunteer. And when I initially had signed up to volunteer, Joe Biden was still the nominee. It wasn't yet Kamala Harris. I've worked in progressive politics for a long time. I have worked for many different Democratic candidates, Senate candidates, House candidates, even some Democratic organizations. And as the years have gone by, I found myself getting more and more disillusioned with the Democratic Party, although until now I've never said that out loud or anywhere public. And I just want to say that by saying this, I'm not necessarily saying that the other party is better. I'm just giving you my experience with working with the Democrats. Throughout my career, I've mostly done campaign fundraising, so I've seen it the way that it works behind the scenes. And I know that candidates spend 8, 9, 10 hours a day just calling donors and begging rich people for money. It's pretty much the only people that they talk to. I mean, of course, sometimes they have to talk to voters, but the majority of their time is just spent calling and begging rich people to give them money for their campaigns. And what this inevitably means is that we don't actually live in a democracy. It's just rich people calling the shots and having the access to talk to the politicians. They're the ones that basically get their ear all day. They're the ones that can help shape and prioritize what the politician actually focuses on. Even the politicians that detest this, that want to get big money out of politics, still have to play this game. They still have to make these calls. They still do the same amount of just calling rich people and begging them for money. And what unfortunately happens once they get into office, if they get into office, is that they soon realize that the money machine is so great and the seduction of power is so immense that they no longer adhere to these values. When I first got into politics, I thought that Democrats were the party of the people. And at the DNC this week, I felt like I was in a building with the most elite and out-of-touch people in the entire world. It very much felt like, let's just have a huge party and forget all of our problems because the vibes are brat. When I was there, I didn't feel any connection to real America or the place that I come from, which is the Midwest, Kansas City, Kansas, and Missouri. I didn't feel any connection to the people that I know right now who are struggling to buy their groceries or to pay their rent. The people who want to know what both candidates are going to do to materially affect change in their lives. And when I was there listening to the speeches, I felt myself feeling mad because I didn't hear anything about the economy. Definitely not in Kamala's speech and not very much in the others as well. Instead, I heard generic platitudes, things like joy and respect and integrity, and what does that even mean? Let's make the military the most lethal in the world? I thought I was part of the anti-war party. I thought I was part of the party that fought for the underdog, that championed working people. When and how did we just become the party of academia and affluence? Because that's what we are right now. How can we ever say that we're going to fight corporate power or give a voice back to those communities that have been left behind when above the delegates on the floor in levels and levels and rings of suites with donors and corporations that we're literally looking down on the people below from above? That's what Chris Cuomo said, and he's absolutely right. You know, I went to the DNC this year hoping that I would feel reconnected to the Democratic Party, that I would have more of a sense of understanding of Kamala and her candidacy and what she stood for. But instead, I ended up leaving and feeling the opposite, more disconnected and alone than ever. And I don't think I can support Kamala Harris for president. I don't even know if I can call myself a Democrat anymore. I don't know who I'm going to be supporting, but I know it's not her. And for once, I'm not afraid to say it.
Wow. That was super, super powerful. By the way, I don't know the person's name, but I did message you on TikTok to the person who did that video. I would love to have you on because I think you said it so well in that video, but I have so many questions and I think the audience would like to hear from you. So if you happen to see this, I gave you my email and number in my message. Go ahead. You're muted.
There we go. I think exceptional message, by the way.
You know, I want to be clear because I think people could watch this and get it twisted. Peter has said, you know, his spiel. This is not about, I'm not telling you to vote for Donald Trump. I'm not telling you not to vote for Kamala Harris. I'm not telling you what to do. I don't think that's my role. But it is my role to tell you the truth. And the truth is basically what she said, which is the same thing Chris Cuomo said, that all of this is basically $1 billion spin machine to make people feel things, to make people have illusions, to make people feel a hope. You know, Michelle Obama went on stage, hope is on the comeback. No, it's not. Homelessness is on the comeback. Homelessness is up in America. Homelessness is up among working people. And it's not exclusively Biden's fault because it'd probably be the same thing under Trump because it's all puppets in these offices. And what she was saying, what she saw, and it takes a special type of person to really see this and feel it because there's a lot of people. It's very easy to get caught up into the show. I understand if you're an older black woman. You know, I saw older black women crying during Kamala's speech. I could understand that. You know, you see what you've never seen before, a woman, a black woman. But for those that I've talked to people around the country, Peter, that are literally going into their couch looking for change to fill their gas tank. I have talked to people who are routinely going to sell blood, plasma, to pay for things. I've talked to people that are not working 1, 2, 3 jobs, several, like 4 or 5. The more we talk, you see that this theater, and it's not just the DNC, the RNC too. The RNC was just a more deranged version of theater. But you hear from that person that even when she was involved and maybe even more positive about the Democratic Party, it was very clear all these politicians do is call rich people begging for money. Well, what world are you calling rich people begging for money where your main service is not to those rich people? It's obvious. And it's just amazing that and I always say, Peter, you know, if you only got so much time in your life, I'm not saying don't go outside and protest outside BlackRock. I'm not saying don't go outside and protest outside of Amazon. I'm not saying don't go protest outside the White House, but we as American people have let the media off the hook. I believe the media is about 60 to 70% of why we have the status quo, because the media is the gatekeepers to the truth. The media is the gatekeepers to what Cuomo just told you and what that woman told you.
But again,
go ahead.
But again, it's the same problem because the media has been captured by corporate special interests. You know, the best clue over the past several years has been the phrase "sponsored by Pfizer." You don't have to look any further, and this was true obviously during the pandemic, and specifically when it came to vaccines. A lot of people didn't trust it, still don't, and in my opinion, shouldn't, because we don't have a universal healthcare system. We have a for-profit sick, I wouldn't even call it care. We have a for-profit sick health system. We are not in the business of preventing problems or in the position. We are in the business of fixing problems because that's where the money is. And the same is true with why this system is completely and utterly broken at this point. So when you see people going, let's say on the Democratic side today, and all they want is to talk about, like the audacity, I hate having to bring it back to her, but the fact that they gave Wasserman Schultz a speaking position at a convention for the first time since 2016. And of course, she goes up there and just talks about how bad the Republicans are in Project 2025. Well, I'm sorry, but somebody like you is going to push people over there and say, fuck it, give me the Project 2025. I don't care anymore. This is the broken system just being on full display. And if you don't have a living wage and you don't have universal health care, then what the fuck do you have? It's just a question of when you fall over the cliff, because it's going to happen.
And I got news for everybody watching, because, you know, we have some conservatives that watch. We got a lot of progressives that watch. We got old people, younger people, doesn't matter. And by the way, we recently passed 200,000 subscribers. So thank you. And if you can, we, unlike most, we're actually out on the ground covering what the corporate media covers up. I will tell you in a few minutes my idea for the next reporting trip, which I think you'll actually like. But we need funding. We need to get a lot more paid members. And all I'm asking for you is 16 cents a day. That's it. 16 cents a day.
I don't know. That sounds kind of expensive these days, but I can afford it, and I'll throw it in.
Peter, 16 cents a day is way less than whatever the hell fancy shit you're using for that beautiful hair. So give me a break. You can do 16 cents a day. Now, I will be clear. What I think is the danger here, I don't care about the vibes at the convention. I could care less. I could tell you the vibes at the 2016 convention were great too. The glass ceiling and stronger together and love Trump's hate, and she lost. Okay? I could tell you the vibes at the convention in 2020 were horrible because there was no convention. It was canceled, and he won. So don't get tripped up in the theater and the optics. Bottom line, you got to assume Trump is underpolling by 4 to 5%, because that's what he underpolled. That's what he underpolled in 2016, and that's what he underpolled in 2020. Secondly, there's a reason Kamala Harris has not done an interview and will not do an interview, because there's no there.
No.
So she will have to do an interview because Trump's going to keep hitting her on it, and eventually the media will too. And when she does it,
apparently she is going to be sitting down for an interview, but she's only doing it with Governor Walz at her side. She will not sit down for a solo interview.
Well, there you go. So the more she speaks, I believe, when pressed on actual policy, that might be a problem for her. Then you have the big issue, which is they could have disappeared it for 4 days in Chicago. But this genocide is only getting worse. Now Israel is preemptively bombing Lebanon. Well, what do you think is going to happen after that? And Kamala Harris, I mean, she's made it clear at the DNC, she's not going to change the policy because her donors, clearly watching above in the boxes, will not stand for it. I truly believe right now people are being made too comfortable that she's going to win. I think it's very possible Trump still wins, even though, frankly, he's running a horrible campaign. And to be clear, he's a threat too. This is not like only let's bash Democrats. I could bash Republicans for 3 hours, but I'm trying to tell you something you don't know, or maybe no less. The bottom line is, if Trump wins again, which I believe there's a strong chance could happen, the problem is then we as lefties, or we as progressives, or we as whatever your label is, working class people, we're going to get stuck in this same fucking cycle, this same hamster wheel again and again, which is, well, we got to get Trump out of office. So it doesn't matter who the candidate is in 4 years. Because to be clear, if you think Trump is just going to stop at 2 terms because the Constitution says no, I got news for you. This is a man who has joked about serving forever. And he has a Congress that I believe, or a party that would very happily ignore the Constitution for him. But even if it's not Trump, if Trump wins again, you would think the Republican Party has the wind at its sails for a President Vance in 2028, or President Tom Cotton, whoever fill in the next MAGA guy.
Well, what
will the messaging be then? What will the messaging be from the media, from the politicians, from the TikTok influencers? I know we still don't have health care. I know that the temperature is now 140 degrees in Arizona, but we got to get rid of the Republicans. Put in the incremental crumbs.
Well, that's why I think we're reaching a breaking point. We're getting there. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when, because people are giving up. And once it's been exposed, you can't put the cat back in the bag. It's not possible, because there's nothing that's being done to change that fortune.
It's actually the genie back in the bottle, but no offense to the cats. Go ahead.
Well, whether it's Christina Aguilera or not, I'm not really concerned. What I am concerned about is that
Colin, could you please make a meme of Peter doing that?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I can dance, but point being, we are in a very precarious place right now. And I do think that the violence is going to get worse. I also think that there is going to be an inherent danger, and I don't really have any sympathy, to be honest, for the politicians. And I also think that people don't realize how much corrupt control a lot of these representatives, such as the one that, Jen just ran against, I see it firsthand. And I know people that gleefully supported Wasserman Schultz, including a lady who I frankly want to put her name out there because I'm just so sick of it at this point. A lady by the name of Rebecca Thompson, who ran for school board in Broward County, particularly in Pembroke Pines, and she attached herself to Wasserman Schultz's hip like nobody's business, and she's young. So she knows what's going on. She ain't no dumbass. Like, she knows full well what's going on, what Wasserman Schultz is involved in, but she wanted to get on the school board. So it was necessary to associate and affiliate. She wasn't the only one, but she was somebody who won by doing that. And in the West Broward suburbs, where everyone lives in a gated community, it's a lot easier to get away with that shit. But these are the things that people need to know about. Knowing the inner workings of the political system is so vital to recognizing how, first of all, everything at the top, that's not where the change happens. It happens in your backyard. And so if you don't know how your mayor is operating, how your county commission is operating, how your city council members are operating, school board, and yes, your congressional representative, if you don't know how they're operating, then what the hell do you know? Yeah, it would suck if Trump gets in. It would suck if Kamala gets in. And no, we're not getting a third party anytime soon. But what you must understand is that all of these issues that we fight on every day, everything comes back to labor because we're all suffering. I wish that Jen's campaign caught fire a lot sooner than it did. We got some momentum at the very end, and it was too late. We beat Wasserman Schultz on early voting and election day, but we got absolutely destroyed in vote by mail. It takes a lot of money and a lot of influence to get on board with this. And I will tell you, there are people in high places in Broward County that were quietly supporting Jen against Wasserman Schultz, but they would dare not say anything publicly. And one of the people who chose to say something publicly, who was an activist in a very working class community in the eastern part of the district, well, she got threatened with removal of her 501c3, basically taking away her livelihood because she had the audacity to allow Jen to walk in a Juneteenth march. Wasserman Schultz would have no part of it. And she went right to her and said, "You fuck with me again, and I'll fuck you 9 ways to Sunday." And that's how they get their power.
MV, when you said, why won't you allow a third party if they stand for what you're talking about? I don't know if you're talking to me because I've had more third party candidates on than anybody else. I think what Peter was saying, I just had Jill Stein and Cornel West on last week. I think what Peter's saying and what I've always been saying is, I think it's easy to just be one of these grifters on the internet, like a Jimmy Dore, for example, who just feeds into people's anger but doesn't actually give them a direction to go. It would be easy for me. First off, I'm a journalist, so I'm not going to tell you whether to support Democrats or third party. It's not my role to tell you who to vote for or the strategy. It's my role to cover all of it. With that said, what I have always tried to make clear, and I think it's showing now, is I think it's I think if you only focus on your anger and your feeling at the Democratic Party, you could kind of get lost in the wilderness. So what I mean by that is, if you think it's rigged trying to work within the Democratic Party, wait till you see what it's like trying to build a third party, because you're seeing it now. That doesn't mean quit and don't do it. But the bottom line is, literally, the Democratic Party is spending tens of millions of dollars to get Jill Stein, Cornel West, RFK before he became a complete fraud. I mean, I told you he was a fraud, but now you know. He just dropped out and endorsed Trump for the working class. I mean, come on. Or anti-war. Trump's not anti-war, by the way. He clearly endorsed Trump because Trump's promising him some position in an administration, which is politics. He's getting the best deal he can, but he's a fraud. Let's just call it what it is. and people like
I will
Jimmy
say, I
Dore.
will say, though, if he does appoint him the head of the CIA, that would be
right. But my point is, it's not about the true discussion. It's not about, well, do we do it in the Democratic Party or the third party? Right now, they're both dead ends. Let me be clear. Right now, trying to seize power within the Democratic Party or as a third party, it is a dead end. I'm sorry to tell that, because obviously Jill Stein is running and Cornel West, but I got to be honest, because the system, both ways, whether it's trying to do it within the Democratic Party or trying to do it as a third party, the system itself is too far gone and too corrupt. So you have to attack the system. And how do you attack the system? Outside. That doesn't mean don't vote. I'm not going to tell anyone not to vote. And there are important issues like abortion, climate, local issues, ballot issues. But what I'm telling you is the only way to structurally change anything is to attack, not physically, but through a movement, through organizing, those fuckers that Chris Cuomo was talking about, the donors. The only way to structurally change anything is to go to the source. And the source is not the politicians. The source is their bosses, the donors. The politicians do what their donors tell them to do and what their donors tell them not to do. And that's why I believe we got to get much more involved in labors, much more involved in union organizing, much more involved in worker strikes, much more involved in tenants unions, much more involved in mutual aid, and much, much, much more involved and creative in creating economic boycotts, similar to France. Because you could try in the Democratic Party, and I think it could have worked, but Bernie made some mistakes. But don't get it twisted. It's still almost impossible for a progressive to win in the Democratic Party. And by the way, Peter, what exactly is winning mean? Bernie could be president right now. I'm not sure we'd have Medicare for all. He could try, but we have a Supreme Court and an army of lawyers that probably would shoot it down. It doesn't mean we wouldn't be in a much better position with a progressive, but just winning, just seizing power, that's step one. Look at Amazon, for example. Workers want a union. They still aren't recognized as a union because the laws in our country have allowed Amazon not to come to the table. Unfortunately, if Bernie were president, it'd be a lot better, but we wouldn't have all the structural change we need because we'd have both parties, the Supreme Court, and every donor in America against him. So to me, you could try to work within the Democratic Party or you could try to build a third party. But at the end of the day, you're going to have dead ends, and they're both rigged in different ways. And we're seeing that right now.
It's all about
they are rigging the third party vote. They're rigging it against federal candidates. They rigged it against Matthew Ho. So you could feel better about yourself, or at least I did it the virtuous way, a third party. Who gives a shit about virtue right now? Let's do whatever it takes to win. And what you need to do to win, we need to stop focusing on elections every 4 years or every 2 years. We need to focus on building an organizing movement and not making the same mistake Occupy Wall Street did. Occupy Wall Street did a lot of great things. I think they lit the spark, but they believed in being a leaderless movement. They believed in, having an egalitarian democracy. We need some leaders to step forward and build the infrastructure for a general strike. I believe Sean Fain is trying to do that. I respect Sean Fain. I respect the UAW. I don't really respect how far they're going in support of the Democrats and Kamala Harris, but I respect what he's trying to do in lining up different workers, different companies, different sectors, and all going on strike at the same time in 2028. But it's going to take more than just Sean Fain. It's going to take all of us. We need to stop focusing on whether it's in the Democratic Party or the or third party. We need to focus on how do we build a movement that's going to be much bigger, much, much bigger than just elections. So we could be out there protesting every day, not just with our wallet, not just with our feet, not just with our signs, but with our wallets. Because if we set up economic boycotts that hurt Amazon, hurt Walmart, hurt the corporate banks, let me tell you, you better believe there will be change real fast in this country. Because you know who's going to call President Harris or President Trump? Jeff Bezos, the Walton family, Jamie Dimon. They say, they're hurting our profits. You got to give them X, Y, and Z. That's what I believe is the way forward. And it took me a while to get there, Peter. I've been covering election for years. But the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over again. Doesn't mean don't vote, but it does mean We cannot become prisoner to our feelings. I understand why people said down with the Democratic Party, all third party. Well, you could still try to build a third party, but don't. We gotta stop all our apples in one basket. That's what I'm saying.
I definitely agree. I've been saying for the longest time, the only positive thing that has come out of the Biden administration, if you can even call it that, has been the improvements in the National Labor Relations Board. But it really comes from Sean Fain and what UAW was able to accomplish for Daimler, GM, and Ford because of the fact that they were able to negotiate through labor a new union contract that got them basically $75,000 a year salaries with full benefits. You know what that did? That got them double the pay of Tesla workers. And that pissed off Elon something awful to the point in which he is giving money hand over fist to Donald Trump to go on stage and basically say, those workers that Sean Fain is a terrible person. In fact, if I become president, I'm going to fire his ass. He's really bad for business. No, he's really great for workers. He's really bad for shareholders. But that's just one example because most unions are shiftless and corrupt. It just so happens that the auto workers in Michigan are actually pretty sharp. Thank goodness. And Sean Fain is that leader. He's doing what he thinks he needs to do. I understand that. I don't think that cozying up anymore with the Democratic Party is any solution. And do not tell me for a second that President Biden had anything to do with why they were able to win that union contract. It's because they stuck their feet in the ground, and Sean Fain is a tremendous labor leader. But he's only one, and we need a hell of a lot more because there's not many of them out there. And that could be done completely outside of electoral politics. So if you are not involved with your local union hall, and there's a lot of different ones to be involved in, it could be the CWA, it could be the AFL-CIO, it could be the iron workers, electricians, you name it.
Communications workers, shout out to Fred Frost.
Yes. Effing Fred Frost, as Debbie Wasserman Schultz likes to say, because there's a person who really did fight to make sure that people were getting a fair shake and getting their living wage and health care. That's something that, again, the basic necessities in life is what people are fighting for. You're not going to get that from the Democratic and Republican corporate parties that are completely bought off. And you're not going to get it from the Libertarian or Green or any other third party that has everything working against them. And listen, I got no love for the Green Party, but I will tell you that they did exactly what they were supposed to do, and they're still getting fucked because the Democratic Party, of course, is doing and they are so much worse than the Republicans when it comes to this. But the point is that they won the right to get their funding, and they are still not getting it. So these guardrails in terms of electoral politics are going to continue to be there, and it's only going to get worse. But when labor unites and you toss away all your bullshit, because I don't want to hear a damn thing about what you think about a person who may not feel the same way you do about the trans community. You have to get it out of your fucking head that you're going to convince people on every single issue, especially social issues, not happening. But when it comes to kitchen table issues, the ability to make a living wage and the ability to get health care and the ability to get paid sick leave and the ability to not have to suffer day in and day out, that's where people are going to unite. And they will unite because I've seen it in person.
And to be clear, because I don't want to get it twisted, because we have some new viewers, and welcome. This is not a advertisement to jump ship. This is not an advertisement to say abandon building a third party or abandon the Democratic Party. I don't care. I'm not telling you what to do. If you still, even in your local community, if you think, well, I agree with you nationally, but in the local community, my only choice is to try and move the Democratic Party left, so that's what I'm going to do. Have at it. In your local community, if you think the best choice is to try and run a Green or an independent candidate, great. What I'm telling, and on the national level, if you want to volunteer your time to Jill Stein or Cornel West or name whatever, have at it. This is not to tell you or dissuade you from that or say Jill Stein's wasting her time or Cornel West is wasting her time. I'm not going to condescend you in that way. What I'm telling you is I've been on the road for 10 years now. I've been through the Bernie wave and crash. Okay. I've been through Standing Rock. I've been through COVID. I've been through it all. And what I can tell you is this flag behind me is not for dramatic purpose. This flag behind me is not making me money because I don't own the copyright. I sure wish I did.
If you guys want to know who runs the United Corporations of America, that's it. I don't think people fully understand how much influence these mega corporations truly have. I mean, Coca-Cola is probably the biggest campaign contributor in the state of Georgia. You know, that's just one example. And there are plenty of others. Nike is one of the wealthiest. I will never buy a Nike product ever again, and I haven't for many years. Nike made all of their money basically in sweatshops in China. That's how they make their money. And the biggest problem that we have, as I would tell everybody, related to, let's say, one of the key issues to this election, which is going to be immigration. The biggest reason you have open borders is because people that are in the labor movement are getting their sea legs, and the people who run this country don't want any part of it. So the goal is to bring in as many people from other parts of the world that are desperate and will work for pennies on the dollar, so everyone gets fucked. That's basically how it works. So until we recognize that everything is about labor, you absolutely should vote. I'm not telling you that you shouldn't. You should vote for every non-corporate candidate that is running for office, from the school board all the way up to, well, president. But if you are not recognizing that all of this is related to the fact that at least 80% of this country is living paycheck to paycheck in some capacity, that's where the change is going to happen, because we're all going through it. The housing crisis that's going on here in South Florida, people that are living comfortably are now not living so comfortable anymore, because Blackstone and State Street and Vanguard are buying up all the houses. And by the way, after AIPAC, the number one donor to Debbie Wasserman Schultz is the real estate industry, led by Blackstone. How many people know that? Not as many as they should. But if they did, they wouldn't be too happy about it. I know I wouldn't be. And I'm not.
And the point is, and we don't have the chart handy, but we'll get it tomorrow. It's very simple, and it's very black and white. If you look at the economic history of America, when those two lines were somewhat equal, where that red line was not skyrocketing upward, meaning all the income was going to the top 1%, the top 5%, when productivity and wages were somewhat even, unions, you had strong unions in this country in the 1950s, 60s, some of the 70s, when the battering ram began ramming into the unions, that other line started going wayward. It's not a coincidence. So we could talk about elections, and we could throw multi-billion-dollar productions at the DNC and the RNC and all the super PAC commercials in the world and all the horse race political coverage on CNN, MSNBC, Fox. But the bottom line is, in France, the reason they're able to protest like they are is because they have healthcare as a right and strong unions and strong regulation. And that's why they're able to protest, because people aren't deathly afraid that if they leave their jobs for the day, or they leave their jobs for a few days and go out to protest, that they're not going to be able to feed their children or not have health care, because it's baked into the cake as citizens. And you have strong labor protections. Here, you don't. You know how many people I've talked to would love to go out and occupy Wall Street, would love to go out and occupy BlackRock, would love to go out and occupy CNN. But their health care is tied to their jobs, or they're working 2 to 3 jobs, or they don't, as one woman painfully told me, I don't have the gas money to drive to a protest. That's what's going on in America. So within the Democratic Party, third party, you're getting fooled if you think that's the debate. We got to reconnect. And I believe, listen, I'm sorry to say this, because I'd say 50% of what Status Coup does is cover protests in the streets. But I've been saying it for a while to the Black Lives Matter folks, to the Free Palestine, Gaza folks, to all the activists. You got to change up your tactics, because it ain't working. I'm not disrespecting you, because you're putting a lot of work into it, but they'll let you physically protest. And if you get a little too loud or rowdy, they'll use their private security, public security, the police, to tase you and crack your skulls and illegally arrest you, including the media. They'll let you protest, but what they cannot handle is if you withhold your money. If you withhold your money, why did they freak out in Canada, right? Those truckers or whatever, I know there was a lot of debate about that. Those truckers were protesting over COVID when they shut down the bridge between Detroit connecting to Canada. That's when they said, this is a national security threat, because that bridge was a major transport of commerce between America and Canada. That's when they said, we can't have this.
Second, you fuck with capital is when they react. And if they're throwing the kitchen sink at you, that means it's working.
So are we going to continue circling around the same blocks, chanting the same shit over and over and over again? Or are we going to start using our wallets, whatever limited cash we have, and say, you know what? We're not going to boycott Amazon for the first day of the month. We're going to boycott Amazon for a month. And we're going to all, in bulk, switch our bank accounts to credit unions. And you know what? If we could get a couple, I don't know, 10,000 people in the city to not pay their rent for a few days, for the first week of the month, or even longer. They can't round you all up, I promise you. If you get that many numbers, they cannot arrest you all. The media will be forced to cover it. They would have no choice. And if they won't cover it, you start protesting them. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it would be effective overnight. But we're at a point now where the protests we've been trying are not working because you're not having that structural change.
Got to have an economic impact.
10 years ago, Princeton, not me, Princeton did a study that found we are an oligarchy, not a democracy. That was 10 years ago. So you could focus on doing it within the Democratic Party or third party. And I know that's how people get their clicks online by just boiling it down to that. But that's really not the main thing. You got to focus on bigger. How do we strengthen labor? And you want to know what? I covered the UAW strikes. We covered the UAW strike for 3 weeks. If you're new to Status Coup, let me tell you, it's very expensive to cover something on the ground for 3 days, let alone 3 weeks. But when we were on the ground, we covered the picket lines in Michigan. We covered them in Ohio. We covered them in Illinois. And I even went to Canada because I thought there was going to be auto strike in Canada too. It didn't happen. But what I could tell you, the reason we were able to stay out on the ground for 3 weeks is because we were going live to 1,000 to 2,000 people, which is a lot for this channel. The reason we were able to stay out live is because we were getting about 20 to 30 people signing up as paid members every day when we were on the road covering the UAW strikes from the picket lines. And the reason why, that was real energy, not the couple-day theater you saw at the DNC or the RNC. People were exploding with energy, with a suppressed fight back, if that's the right phrase, a fighting spirit that had been suppressed for so many years because people lost hope. I'm talking about the UAW workers and a lot of people that were not UAW workers that came to support them. That's why we were able to stay out there. That's why we were growing, because there is a huge, huge appetite, not just among lefties, among people on the right, politically agnostic, no labels at all, to kind of get back to where we used to be as a country economically. I'm not talking about socially and culturally. We've made a lot of great gains socially, equality, but economically, people kind of came out of hibernation then, and we need to do that more. And I know it's hard because a lot of people are working multiple jobs. You got to watch your kids. You have so much time in the day. You barely have time to watch or listen to us. But I don't want to be here in 4 years having the same conversation about the Democratic Party versus third party.
You won't.
If we're not talking about massive, rabble-rousing economic boycotts, then we're just spinning our wheels. I got to go watch my kid. Peter, tell people how they could support your channel and what you got coming out tonight. Oh, boy.
I just want to come on here and remind you all that whatever he just said is total bullshit. It is not true. The Democratic Party establishment is forever. We, the Clintons, have made it very clear that we're still in control. So don't forget that. Don't deny that. But I will say, take a little pity on this guy. He's working real hard. He's got a book he's trying to peddle out to the commoners. So make sure you buy your We Are the Poisoned. I probably had a little bit to do with that as president. I did a lot of deregulation, if you remember. We had a couple of nasty things that I passed in my time in the White House, starting with NAFTA. And that's a big reason why you all are drinking such contaminated water today. So have a little anger at me, but take pity on our good friend over here. So,
President Clinton, can you answer? I heard a rumor that you flew Jeffrey Epstein's plane, the dearly departed Jeffrey Epstein's plane, to the DNC in Chicago.
I cannot confirm nor deny that I had anything to do with Mr. Epstein's demise. All I can assure you is that I never made it onto that plane. I might have been on the flight logs, but I was just trying to find my way to Tahiti, and somehow I ended up on some other island with a bunch of young ladies. But the effect of what I was trying to accomplish was still done, so I can't apologize for that. But nevertheless, I certainly had a great time. Mr. Epstein, I can't say the same for him anymore. But nevertheless, as I said, you all want to make sure that you listen to the speech that I gave. It reaffirms what I've been telling you all along. I'm the reason why you're all fucked today, and I can't apologize. I'm a 100 millionaire. I still have to live with Hillary, which is unfortunate, but I managed to get away every once in a while, and I definitely live it up whenever that opportunity presents itself. So I just want to let you all know that, in case you're wondering, there is this other channel that's out there. It's called Generational Change with a J. I happen to enjoy it because there's kind of a cute little lady that appears on that show. Her name's Jen Perlman. She knows I was hoping she'd get to Washington. I'd pay her a visit every once in a while. But in the meantime, you might want to go over there and make sure you subscribe, like, comment, do all the things that, you know, these so-called common people ask you to do to make a few pennies on the side. I make a few pennies every time I open my mouth, and it certainly has served me well over the past 30 years. But of course, I want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to survive in this broken economy. So make sure you get over to Generational Change, you subscribe, and maybe even consider going to that Patreon account. They might actually, need some help. Like I said, Clintonism, neoliberalism, it's forever until this country's no more. Just accept it, play along, and enjoy the ride.
Is that red lipstick on your cheek?
Listen, I cannot confirm nor deny where I've been in the last 48 to 72 hours. I was in Chicago. Chicago, as you know, is a wonderful city. They've got some really fine-looking, 6 and 7s there, and that's pretty much the average that I'm able to bat these days. But hey, they still like Slick Willie. It still works on them, and so I have myself a time. I'm running an all-nighter right now. I haven't even looked in the mirror. I hope my hair is okay, and I hope everybody's enjoying this fine little show that I managed to swing by every once in a while. But Jordan, keep fighting for the little guy. One of these days he might catch a break. But unfortunately, I passed the Telecom Act in 1996, and they're not going to give you shit. Just keeping it real. Bye.
By the way, I want to invite Bernie back on later this week. We got to have Bernie on to get his response to the DNC and all the Palestinian Americans they allowed on stage. Peter, go ahead.
One final note. For those of you who obviously did pay attention to the unfortunate circumstances that took place at the convention, Nadia Ahmad, who is a DNC delegate, was the person, along with a couple of others, that held up the Free Palestine sign when President Biden was speaking, and then she was physically assaulted for doing such a thing. She is actually going to be on Generational Change tonight at 9 o'clock to talk about exactly what went down inside that convention. So I'm sure we're going to have another wonderful story for you all to hear about the pomp and circumstance. Interestingly enough, when I was doing the Macho Man earlier, the truth is it's all pomp and circumstance, and that's his theme song, Pomp and Circumstance, because that's all this is. I don't have time for it. Neither should anybody else. What we have time for is to figure out how we are going to unify around a working class labor message. I think Status Coup is doing that. I think we're doing that. I think a handful of other channels are doing that. And that's really where the energy needs to be focused on. I hope against all hope that the channels that are out there that are just continuing to follow the circus and are only concerned about their bottom line and their clicks, that maybe they'll come around. But I don't do this for my health, and neither does Jordan. I do it because I give a damn, and because Jordan is a real journalist, and that's who you need to be supporting. That's where your efforts need to be going. I understand people want to be talking heads, but my God, at this point, if you're not doing on-the-ground reporting, then what the fuck are you doing? That's where I stand.
Thank you, sir. Colin, if you could save the super chats for tomorrow, I got to run to watch my kid. Everybody, we will be back tomorrow. Please check out the interviews we did. The interview with Marianne Williamson from last week is up in full. We only aired part of it. The interview with Shama Sawant is up in full. We only aired part of it last week. The interview with Cornel West is up in full. We will have the interview with Joel Stein up in full tomorrow or Wednesday. And if you can, I really appreciate it. Check out my book. You can order it online, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, any online site. It's in a lot of bookstores too, including independent. We the Poisoned. I really, really appreciate it. As humbly as I could say it, I've given everything to this story over the last 8 years. And I really hope we can get more people to get the book. The more people that get the book, the more people who know the truth, and then we can actually take action once we wake more people up.